Hi, I'm Susan Cachay. I'm a mineral nutritional balancing practitioner, and I'm here with Alex, who's an Enneagram practitioner. And we just wanted to introduce ourselves first of all. My practice is focused on mineral and nutritional balancing, which is a program that focuses on treating the body as a whole system that starts with hair mineral analysis. And we look at the different stress patterns in the body and simply try to support the body and bring it into better balance. It's not the focus of this podcast, and you can certainly get more information from my website, but we'll be touching along parts of the program and just, how it relates to our overall health as we're moving through this podcast. But Alex, perhaps you can introduce yourself and just chat a little bit about what you do as well.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, and just for listeners, Susan and I have been working together in her professional capacity for 6 years as I've kind of started to do work with the Enneagram, and so there's so much where the two tie together, and so Enneagram work is based mostly in sort of the mind-centered connection to everything else. So there are points of your psychology that connect to the body, that connect to your emotions, that are more inherent in your thoughts. And each of the 9 points of the Enneagram represents something in one of those spheres. So the knowledge of actually how to balance the body that Susan has brought me has been so phenomenally helpful. And with this study of how the mind interacts with those factors, I've really started to see how the two tie together. And so, really excited for this chat with you today, Susan.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm excited too. So one of the things that we wanted to chat about that we were talking about before we started this podcast was just how diet impacts your thoughts and feelings. And so I wanted to chat about that from a mineral nutritional balancing perspective, and then perhaps you can weigh in on that as well. But definitely, so there's been so much research on the impact of gut health to our thoughts. And, in return, our thoughts also, what we hold in our mind also manifests in our body, right? Which I'm sure you're going to touch on a little bit as well. So it's interesting for me that the mind and the body, as most people know by now, are so connected. And one of the things that I love about mineral nutritional balancing is that it treats the body as a whole system. So we're not just looking at, one thing. We're looking at the body as a whole system and going, okay, well, yes, when we clean up your gut, when we clean up your diet, that's going to impact the thoughts that you have. And when you're working with probably a practitioner like you, and you're thinking about your thoughts and what you're thinking about and where you're allowing your mind to spend attention, well, that also affects your body. But there's lots of research that shows that things like gluten or food intolerances, it's almost really any food that can cause inflammation in the body. So although when I work with people, there's a general diet outline, we all know that whole foods are really important. I really do recommend that people include some animal protein, cooked foods versus raw, which can be irritating. So there's definitely some general outlines for everybody. But other than that, everybody's diet sometimes needs to be a little bit different depending on their own individualities. And also, that changes as a person gets healthier. So the program really subscribes to the terrain theory as opposed to the germ theory, right? We're looking at the terrain of the overall body, increasing resiliency, increasing overall gut function and gut health. And so sometimes food intolerances will actually start to decrease and be eliminated on the program. But along with that, a better diet, just feeling better, getting healthier overall, that really reflects also in our mind and our thoughts. I don't know if you found that in the program or you needed to kind of, look at the thoughts and address that a bit more directly through Enneagram work. But I'm really excited to also hear about how the Enneagram work for you complemented what you were doing on the mineral nutritional balancing program.
Absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is that each of the 9 Enneagram type patterns is essentially how we get stuck and how we limit ourselves. So there are some types that limit themselves into their physical experience, and they will tend to not get out of balance in their body because they're more in touch with instinctually, how do I keep my body feeling good? But there are many types that get stuck in their head or stuck on emotional issues and focus on those so intently when they get stressed that they just forget about their body, right? So a type 5 or a type 4 might follow that pattern where, fives would get stuck in the inside of their head center. A 4 would get stuck on the inside of their heart center, and they will just lose awareness of the body. Then there are other types that get stuck on the outside. A 7 would get stuck on the outside of the head center, and a 2 would get stuck on the outside of the heart center, right? So those are two types of people who would be so focused on their external experiences that they forget to slow down, and they forget to sort of temper themselves and take care of themselves and do what they have to do. The broad strokes for any type is essentially that as you get more stressed, as you have more long-term stress, and as you use your sort of psychological defense mechanisms more to protect from the sort of emotional impact of the difficult things that happen in this world, you will begin to be more limited and focus on a certain part of your experience rather than the whole. And I have found that a lot of people that turn to Enneagram work, for example, almost do it as part of that fixation, right? If you want everything to be in the mental study realm, and the Enneagram offers a great way to just spend all of your time thinking about stuff, then you might not be learning the physical balancing things that you need. And similarly, something I observed in the mineral nutritional balancing community too is a lot of people get so caught up in figuring it out, that and they forget to listen to their bodies. They follow a design that isn't necessarily nourishing them and helping them find balance.
Right, right. And getting in touch with that intuitive part of yourself so that you can decide what works. Or even on the program, I find that that does start to develop for most people. But to know, yes, I need to back off now, or I need to step it up now, or and it's sort of this dance as we go along with healing, right? Healing isn't like this. Healing for most people is sort of this interesting journey of ups and downs and different layers and all of that. So yeah, so that's really interesting. So doing some Enneagram work sounds like it can really help people get more in touch with their intuitive side, and can speed up that healing process a little bit in that way. Would that be true to say?
Yeah, definitely. And it's an interesting thing because no matter what you're working on, if you're working physically, if you're working, with something like the Enneagram, if you are following the teachings of someone who is balanced, you will find balance. If you're following the teachings of someone who is not, then you will not find that balance. And interestingly, I found also in the Enneagram community, there are a lot of teachers who are very, spiritually advanced, so to speak, in terms of their knowledge of spiritual and psychological development, but then their bodies are totally out of balance. And so, that's one major category of your experience, that if that's not in balance, then, how do you find balance in your life? You have to approach everything holistically and keep the big picture in mind, no matter what you do. So when I work with the Enneagram, and when I'm working with coaching clients and teaching and so forth, I try to work in that holistic way. So Susan, in the Enneagram community, this is a similar pattern to what I've seen in the mineral nutritional balancing community, but a lot of people get so caught up in what's my type, is what describes me, what am I like, what do I do? They forget that the type is the way that you limit yourself, and the path is to finding wholeness in your body and your heart and your mind. So you need to work in the general sense and then use the specific information to help you navigate. But the more detailed the information you're working with, the harder it is to be accurate in your plan with that information, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. So, do you have an example, perhaps on your own healing journey, where the two, so the mineral nutritional balancing and the Enneagram work, really intersected in a way that kind of helped you, um, move forward more with them to combined than either one separately?
Sure, sure. And I can point to recent experience because actually, so I've been using the Enneagram for 8 years or so now, and I thought I was a Type 9 for much of that. And I recently, about 4 or 5 months ago, discovered that I'm a 5, not a 9. So I have that type pattern of getting stuck in my head and not physically embodied. And Susan, since you've been advising me on my health for many years, you've seen me go through many patterns where, oh, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. And that was my type 5 Enneagram pattern because I didn't know I was a type 5. I didn't know I was doing it, but that was my pattern at work of I was stuck in my head. I came up with an idea. I said, this makes sense. That's probably what's going to work for my body and my health. And I would go and I would do it. And then my hair test would show up with an NAK pattern totally whacked out, or a calcium shell coming up out of nowhere when it wasn't there before, and stuff like that. So that's one of the real reasons I love the hair test, actually, is because that's not your subjective interpretation.
Exactly.
It's a test. It's showing you what's there. So that perspective always helps to ground and to help me find that center again when I go a little too far into my experimenting.
Right, exactly. Oh, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. So, in terms of parallels between the physical detox and emotional detox, maybe we could chat about that for a little bit. So, from my perspective as a mineral nutritional balancing practitioner, primarily, I see that a lot, and part of that, just at a physical level, is that we heal layer by layer, and many people use this expression, but it's kind of like peeling back the layers of an onion, right? And at each layer, I mean, there can be emotional trauma laid down with different heavy metals. And the reason is because as we're going through the traumas, especially when we're in a place where we're experiencing it, our body actually has a tendency to hang on to metals during that period of time, during periods of trauma, because when we're in what's called sympathetic dominance and the body is not relaxed and not in a place where it thinks it's safe, it doesn't think it actually can release metals or have enough safety to detox and heal, so it hangs on to everything. So as we're developing and growing and just going through these experiences, oftentimes the metals and even viruses and bacteria get woven in with the emotional traumas and our emotions. And I think Candace Perk in her book Molecules of Emotion talks about this as well, about how the emotional really is also stored in our cells along with the toxins and the metals and all of that. So definitely when people are healing generally, I mean, on the program or, doing any kind of healing work, where both can actually be released simultaneously and both can come up at the same time. So just wanted to get your opinion on that and what you found has been helpful for you and how the Enneagram work kind of fits into that and sort of helping you deal with that.
Definitely. Well, knowledge is power. So if you can see what's happening from a physical perspective, for example, if you understand heavy metals and detox and you know that it's happening, that always helps to ground yourself when you're feeling the discomfort. Healing is not a comfortable journey in physical or emotional or in any sense, usually, because you have to stir up whatever is unprocessed. So, yeah, I guess I would just say that if you are sort of running your type pattern, your defense pattern, however it is that you convince yourself to not heal and to stay stuck, right? If you're doing that, that will probably also lead to you holding on to your toxins and your heavy metals. No matter what your diet's doing, I've always felt that if you're not open to processing through the emotional pain, then you're probably not going to let go of the physical. And so it's just a two-way street. I think when a lot of people hit a sort of point where they decide, okay, I'm going to sort of take my life seriously, resolve my stuff. This is my healing journey begins today. If you hit that point and you're not open to the whole thing, well, basically just check and see how open you're being. And every single layer that you let go of is going to be a choice of,
Yes.
I'm ready for this, I'm ready for this, I'm ready for this. And it's every time you make the choice, it's hard. And but it always entails a letting go of, it's like you have to let go of the pain in order to, and let go of the desire to control your experience in order for your body to, and your heart and your mind to enter that sort of um, harmonious state in which it can heal. It's not like a proactive, I'm forcing myself to heal. It's let me let go and let, you know, whatever needs to happen.
Exactly. And I love the way you've said that. There's actually a book by David Hawkins called Letting Go that I
Ah,
recommend to a number of my clients. And it actually talks about just that, about letting the emotions come up and the pain come up in order to actually let them go. Like we need to be able to be present and to feel that and make the choice to actually let that go instead of hanging on to them. And I also do agree, and I see this sometimes on hair tests where the person is really doing the program, and I know they're being very diligent, and things aren't moving very much.
mhm,
And sometimes it really is, it's an emotional block that's keeping those things and the metals, right, that we consider to be just physical, stuck. And
mhm.
until a person is actually at a place where they're able to do that, and sometimes some other work, more spiritual, emotional work is necessary to get into the place where they are ready to do that, that things will just remain stuck no matter what they're doing on a physical level.
Exactly. And there's the physical, metaphysical aspect of, you let go emotionally and somewhere in your body something starts moving. But then there's also the piece of it that's, once you become open emotionally and mentally to the change, you might start being willing to change stressful things that are in your life in a passive way, and let go of those things, get out of a bad situation, get out of a, or even, if you have too, if you're too withdrawn, right, getting in and more engaged a little bit, and wherever that balance comes from, wherever you're out of balance with the way you're spending your time and who you're spending your time with, once you become willing to let go, then you sort of just automatically start to see, this is what I should be doing that I wasn't allowing myself to do, to have a less stressful life. It's like you have that is a hugely important thing. It's not, be psychologically at peace no matter what's happening around you. A big part of it is respecting yourself enough to let your environment be more peaceful.
Exactly. And what would you say the role of the body in spiritual development is?
Mhm. In terms of the Enneagram, there are basically three ways where you can get out of presence with your body. And again, everyone has every point of the Enneagram, but each of the points also represent a specific type. So, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is listening and allowing your body to, have the instinctual drives that it's supposed to have, and follow those, and don't push your body too hard. Don't keep your body from moving how it wants to, or and just allowing it to be. But yeah, types 8, 9, and 1 are the three ways where we kind of de-presence from the body. 8 is essentially a personality type or a mechanism in our psychology where we overuse. 9 is essentially a part of our psychology where we underuse our body, or we also just allow our body or our being to be involved in whatever's around us. We merge with our environment, and if something stimulating is happening, we go with it. If nothing's happening, then we just sit on the couch all day. And type 1 or point 1 is where we actively fight against our instinctual drives and, our social drive and our self-preservation drive, and where we, mentally decide this is what's right, therefore I'm not going to, be presenced in my body. So, as a broad stroke, what is the role of the body in spiritual development? It is to be in your body. I always think it's so interesting, and definitely not a coincidence, that so many monasteries center around physical activity. Ashrams, and where there's intense yoga practice, or Shaolin monks. The physical mastery, and being fully embodied in your physical experience is sort of step number one, almost, of a spiritual journey. If you don't start there, then your emotions can't be balanced and your thoughts can't be balanced.
Right, right, exactly. In terms of the importance of listening to your body, I think that both of you and I definitely agree on that. That is of utmost importance that people develop that. And part of it for me on the program, I always look at it like removing interference, right? Whether it's thoughts or toxins or metals. A lot of the work that I do with my clients is about removing interference so their body can just be and function as it's meant to. And I feel like when that is done, oftentimes a person just naturally comes into their intuition and has a better sense. Because I'll get the question a lot, well, I don't know if it's my intuition or if it's just my anxiety, or, where that's coming from. So how do you find you help clients with that through working with the Enneagram?
Sure. So, well, again, each of the 9 patterns is essentially a fear-based pattern. Some types are essentially much more. There's a type 6 that is acutely aware of their anxiety. There's type 5 is sort of unaware of it but stays mentally stuck on things. But basically, every type has an anxiety, has a core fear, and has a set of behaviors that sort of run automatically like a movie, where they're not in control of it, because they just go into activated, type pattern mode. So helping people see that and understand what that pattern is, and then to recognize when it's happening in the moment. And while instead of starting to do that pattern, take a deep breath and decide to not do it, and then decide what they really want to do. And it sounds very simple, but our patterns are so baked in. We don't. It's like you could do that one simple, quote, simple thing for decades, and you would still have plenty to work with. So becoming more present to what's going on here and now always helps to remove that anxiety, because essentially, unless there is something physically threatening you here and now, what are you afraid of? It's all part of this big sea of past experiences, expected future experiences. But when you're in the present moment, that's where everything's actually happening. So presence is probably the biggest word in the Enneagram world and Enneagram community and Enneagram work, because that's really what we're after when we're working with the Enneagram.
Right. Okay, wonderful. So how can people get in touch with you if they'd like to work with you?
Yeah, so you can head to my website, spiritbloomcoaching.com, and you can send me an email there and see sort of the different things I offer. I do some seminars, and I do one-on-one coaching, and have a lot of educational resources on the Enneagram itself there as well.
Okay, wonderful. And people can reach me on my website at susancachay.com, susancachay.com. And Alex, this has been great. It was wonderful to chat with you today.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Susan.
Thanks. Bye-bye.